Hello again, everyone. I'm Tom Nagorski with the Cipher Brief, another iteration of our video series. And we've been spending a lot of time thinking and talking about all the hopeful signs, at least for the moment, coming out of Gaza, or the talks about a potential ceasefire in Gaza. Fingers crossed that that comes to fruition. But today we turn to another part of the region, super important country in the region, that is Lebanon, where there are also, as we'll talk about in a moment, some reasons for hope, and maybe more concrete ones, actually, not to compare Lebanon with Gaza. We're joined by Glenn Korn, a Cipher Brief expert, former senior executive at the CIA, and a person with a great deal of experience in Lebanon on the ground for a long, long time. And Glenn, well, just to set the table, I guess, for the audience, they may know, we have in a country that is not, in recent years, been gifted with great leaders. We have a new prime minister, or any leaders for that matter. For certain chunks of time, we have a prime minister, we have a president. They've been an economic disaster zone for all kinds of reasons. There may be the prospect of new aid coming in, and they still are suffering from the devastation of Israel's campaign against the south, against Hezbollah, but there's a fragile truce there. That's a lot to throw out, but am I being Pollyannish? Are we being Pollyannish? Or, let's just start there. How hopeful are you about this moment for Lebanon?
Well, first, thanks. It's nice to see you again, Tom, and thank you for having me on the show to talk about this very important and interesting topic. How positive can we be? Let's just focus on the facts, right? The facts are that after over 2 years of having no president, the Lebanese have elected a president. The former commander of the Lebanese Armed Forces, Yosef Aoun. And they also now have they had an acting prime minister, a caretaking prime minister. Now they have a prime minister. So the prime minister was nominated and confirmed by the parliament. These are two very, very important steps, and I think positive signs. Now, what I believe is that they're positive signs, but there's going to be a lot of things that have to come with them or after these events to capitalize on opportunity in Lebanon and in the Levant, because we have to talk about Syria as well and Israel. But there's a great opportunity right now, I think, for the United States, I speak as an American, to empower our allies and to finish the job of countering and eliminating the influence of our enemies, especially in Lebanon.
Mm-hmm.
That would be Iran's number one proxy, Lebanese Hezbollah.
Right, right. To what extent, talk a little bit, I don't know if you know these individuals, it's an interesting combination. As you said, the president is a former army commander. The prime minister nominee, anyhow, is a jurist, international criminal court. What should those choices tell us? Or is it just important that they have put people in these positions now?
I think it's important to note that, for 2 years plus, Lebanese Hezbollah was blocking, the Iranians through Hezbollah, and to a lesser degree, Amal, the second major Shia party in Lebanon. They were blocking the election of a president. They had a candidate they wanted. There was no consensus. I think it's a clear sign that Lebanese Hezbollah has lost a great deal of its power and its ability to hold the entire government and people of Lebanon at their will. Mm-hmm. So as hostages to their policy choices. So this is also the case for the new prime minister. Lebanese Hezbollah did not want him. The Amal, is my understanding, they abstained from the vote. Lebanese Hezbollah wanted the continuation of the guy who was the acting prime minister, Makati. That was their candidate of choice, and they didn't get it, which is really interesting and a very positive development. And both candidates, they're going to have their work cut out from. Lebanon has had a dysfunctional government for a very long time for a number of reasons. And we could do like a 12-day podcast trying to unpack all that. But they have an opportunity. They're going to need help. They're going to need support. My understanding is that the U.S. government position was up to this point that without a president, the U.S. was not going to invest in a lot of aid and assistance for Lebanon, which is badly needed. Now they have a president. Of course, now the ceasefire that was achieved was very tenuous, because I think the Israelis were saying if the Lebanese did not agree to a president, didn't have a government in place, they were not going to honor the ceasefire. My understanding is let's say past the end of January. So
Right.
now there is a president. Now there is a prime minister. Now the process is going to happen to name all the members of the cabinet. My guess is that will start with the security agencies. There are four security services in Lebanon, including the Lebanese Armed Forces G2 and three other services, which happy to talk about. But they're going to play an important role. They have played an important role, and they will play an important role in stability and enforcing Resolution 1701 and the terms of the ceasefire.
Right. Now, what's astonishing about all of this, for you especially, you've watched this for so long. I have to some extent from a greater distance, although I spent time there. And it's, there are these things or notions that are so baked in that part of the world, right? That Lebanon, at least recently, I hate to use the term, but I will anyway, like a basket case in terms of the things you've laid out, the politics and the economy of the country, the power of Hezbollah, both militarily and politically, as you've laid out, Iran's engagement, and of course, this is before we even mentioned Syria, right? So, and by which I mean the rebellion, and so do all these things. They certainly bring some uncertainty. But am I wrong in suggesting that every single one of those is if you're sitting in Beirut as a potential future leader of the country, a positive development, right?
I would say it's a positive development. Lebanese Hezbollah, which was an armed militia and terrorist organization, which was holding the country hostage in many ways, has been seriously hurt by the Israeli campaign in a way that nobody expected. I mean, I think we have to say hats off to the Israelis for what they accomplished in the period that they did. I don't think anybody was predicting that. So the Israelis did a great job going after a country that declared war or expanded their war against Israel in a strategic mistake that Nasrallah made on, let's say, October 8th of 2003, when he decided to throw his hat in with Hamas.
Mm-hmm.
And this opens up the door. I mean, the Lebanese are beginning to say, which you wouldn't have heard a year ago. We need to disarm the rest of Hezbollah, because Hezbollah was the only militia that was allowed to keep its arms after the civil war ended.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying we can disarm. Now it's time we disarm Hezbollah. Hezbollah can enter as a legitimate political party to represent the Shia population, that part of the population that supports them, but they should not be allowed to be an armed gang that is, has the same level of power, maybe or even more in many cases, than the Lebanese armed forces.
Yep.
Lebanese armed forces are the legitimate military force in the country, and they should be able to, in my assessment, secure Lebanon's borders and not have to count on Lebanese Hezbollah or any other militia to do that for Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. Now, you use the word help. They're going to need help. Obviously, as effectively as Israel has taken on Hezbollah, there is, as you know, incredible devastation in the south, and that's on top of an economically deeply troubled country. I gather that the investiture of the new president and prime minister may also unlock some aid from the West, some aid from the Gulf. What are the needs, and how likely is that to happen? That some of these spigots start to open to help them.
Right. So my understanding, I mean, I think we know that even before the expansion of Israel's campaign against Hezbollah, or the war that Hezbollah was waging against Israel in 2003, that Lebanon had serious economic problems, right? And the infrastructure has been deteriorating. Of course, the Israeli campaign, especially in the south and in southern Beirut, has devastated whole parts of the city, parts of towns. So there's a lot of need for reconstruction across the country. And my understanding is that the Saudis and other Gulf countries were very hesitant to invest anything further in Lebanon. They've given the country money in the past, but they put a lot of that on hold because they saw that Hezbollah, their regional enemy, was basically undermining any effort for development in the country, except development that the Iranians wanted or Hezbollah wanted. Now, I think this opens the door with the election of a prime minister or a president, and election of a prime minister or naming of a prime minister who's been confirmed. This opens the door for aid to come. I think some of the GCC countries will be more interested and more willing to invest. The Europeans, and of course, the United States. And I would say, this incoming administration is going to have a lot on its plate. It's inheriting a world which is very, very dangerous and complicated, and I would suggest that our foreign policy position across the board is not great. And so there's a lot of work that has to be done. And I know there's going to be a temptation to walk away or ignore the Middle East. I hope they learn the lesson of the previous or the outgoing administration, and which was kind of stunned, I think, by 7 October, and it caused a lot of problems for the administration, both externally and domestically. And so I hope we don't make that mistake again. And we realize that if we don't help the legitimate leadership of Lebanon to secure these gains and solidify the gains, somebody else will fill that vacuum, and we shouldn't want that.
And last question then, Glenn, on Lebanon and the way forward. Is Hezbollah or any other parties who may not like what we're seeing and what we've been talking about, are they in any position to torpedo this? Obviously it's not in their interest. I don't suppose that the new president and prime minister really succeed, given how frozen out of this they've been.
Yeah, I think that they are still in some position to block, cause problems. The momentum is on the side of legitimacy. The momentum is on the side of, let's say, the opponents of Hezbollah, and the momentum needs to be taken advantage of. We need to take advantage of this moment. The Lebanese security forces are going to need assistance. The Lebanese armed forces, we've provided a lot of assistance in the past, but now is kind of the key moment. And let's hope that all that investment, it wasn't for naught, that it didn't go to waste. The legitimate security services need to be empowered and supported by the U.S. and other partners to finish the job, in my opinion, of disarming Hezbollah, and let the Shia, and this is also very important, Tom, like the legitimate government, the new government needs to make sure that the Shia population is welcome into any kind of coalition government, and that they have a say, and that the say isn't, they don't have to return to Iran or some other power outside of Lebanon to help them. That they'll get the help from the government itself.
Yeah. We're going to leave it there. Thanks so much, Glenn Korn. Super helpful on the subject of Lebanon and the year and maybe many years ahead. And here's to hoping that it goes as well as we've been suggesting it may.
One last thing, Tom, I will say, Lebanese people are pretty dynamic people. So that's
Yes.
no reason for hope. They're very smart people, educated people. They of the countries I know, they can be very inspiring. So this is I think a very good moment, and you have people that you can work with.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. Super resilient too. I mean, yeah.
Super resilient and smart.
Yeah.
And a lot of style and great food.
Not small things. Yes. All right. Thanks again, Glenn. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.